On today's Locked On Giants podcast, former New York Giants offensive lineman Justin Pugh is my special guest as he joins me to talk Giants and his new podcast. That's all coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find my written work. And as always, everyone, welcome on into my Blue Crew community members, to my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And folks, all week long, I've been teasing that I would have a special guest on the podcast. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Justin Pugh, who has entered the world of podcasting. Before we talk about his new podcast, which is really exciting and in what he's doing, we're going to talk a little bit of Giants football with a guy who just so happens to be a former Giant. Justin, my friend, welcome to the podcast.
Patty, thanks for having me on. It was I was at the game on Thursday. Obviously, been watching all the games. Thought there was a chance I might be on this team this year. It didn't happen that way, but still a Giants fan in my heart. So I'm always happy to talk New York Giants football.
Well, we are always happy to see you. You are always a fountain of youth, and you've always been very good to me, which is appreciated. And Justin, let's start off with this Giants team. The quarter of a season has gone by. The results not quite what anybody was expecting, although you can make an argument that, given the kicker situation in week 2, maybe they win that game. But, I think we've got to start with the offense. And I want to start with the offensive line because it all starts, in my mind, up front. Can you just talk a little bit about what you have seen from the Giants offensive line and the progress that unit has made since week 1?
Tremendous progress. I really have enjoyed watching this group on film. Every Monday or Tuesday, I'll dive in and watch the all 22, watch the end zone like I'm a former player and kind of break down what went well, what didn't. The Giants and Devin Singletary, as I'm going to kind of group them in together for a minute before going position by position, have really been putting a lot of good things on tape. Now, it hasn't led to the success that we want on the field just yet, but we are trending in the right direction. For years, everyone has said, if the Giants just fix the offensive line, we will be the best team in football. People blame the offensive line because they don't know what else to talk about. Football is a team game. Yes, the offensive line has had their moments of struggling. The entire team, like the last decade, it hasn't been, we're competing with the Kansas City Chiefs for Super Bowls. There's a lot that had to be overhauled, and we are doing that. Joe Shane, Brian Daboll are heading in the right direction. This is a glass half full conversation. I'm always, internally optimistic because I refuse to live life any other way. So back to the offensive line and the individuals in particular. Andrew Thomas had a bounce back game that I expected him to have. It wasn't his best outing against Myles Garrett and the Browns. He came and shut down Micah Parsons. Maybe Parsons had one play where he got Andrew Thomas on a run. But Andrew Thomas, back to form, looking tremendous. John Runyon at left guard has been worth every penny that we paid him. You saw it on Hard Knocks. He's been a very, very good player. John Michael Schmidt has taken that next step that I thought he would this year. I actually have him as the vocal leader of the offensive line. Andrew Thomas is your lead by example, first one in, last one out. A little bit more of a quiet guy. John Michael Schmidt has become that vocal leader. Look at right guard. The sneaky signing of this summer, Greg Van Roten, you go out in August and get your starting right guard. Maybe there was another veteran that could have been in that position, and it didn't work out. But Greg has come in and has provided that stability. He knows how Carm Brasillo wants the offensive line to play. And then everything that happened with Evan Neal, I'm glad that he's able to sit back, get healthy, gain confidence, learn how some of these guys are playing, because Jermaine Illuminor, who's playing right tackle, is playing as good as any right tackle that I've seen in the NFL. He's smooth with his sets. His hand placement looks great. So I think that is a very positive for the entire team, but also individually for Evan Neal, because Evan Neal will play this year at some point. I mentioned that I thought he would come into the Dallas game and be a 6 offensive lineman at some point. We will see Evan Neal on the field as a 6 offensive lineman. And unfortunately, there will be something that happens. I hope it's not, knock on wood. Hopefully there's no injuries. But Evan Neal will have to play some point this year. And I'm looking forward to seeing his progression, because he still is. I can say this. Evan Neal is the best run blocker on the Giants team right now. No one can run block better than Evan Neal. Maybe, he could be top 10 in the NFL moving people off their spot. In pass protection, it's hurt his confidence, and that's matriculating down into the rest of his game. So as he regains that confidence, I feel very optimistic about the rest of his career. He's going to be a successful starter in the NFL, but it was good to take that pressure off him. So long way of saying I am very optimistic about this offensive line group, and look forward to their continued success.
Justin, when you look at Evan Neal, let's stay there for a moment if we could. He was the 7th overall pick in the draft, in his draft class. How difficult is it coming from college? And you did it, and you did it successfully, but how difficult is it coming from college, going to the NFL, getting thrown into the deep end of the pool right away when maybe your technique isn't as polished, or maybe you're not as used to the speed of the game? Can you just talk about some of the challenges that transition brings?
It's tremendously difficult. You're going against grown men that are fighting to put food on their table. Like, they're fighting for their livelihood. There's a defensive end out there that's been cut 2 or 3 times, and you're in the way of him staying in the NFL or having to go get another job. And that's what people don't realize at times, is the speed of the game. It's not like guys are that much faster or that much stronger. They process information so much quicker because they've seen this look 200, 300, 400 times before in practice and in games. All you're worrying about is football. So for Evan, and playing in a place like New York City is not easy. I am almost a huge proponent of redshirting players in New York specifically, because not only do you have to handle playing football in the NFL, which is hard enough as is, you have to learn to deal with some type of fame in New York City, dealing with how to navigate that place. There is no city in the NFL that is comparable. There is no other place that has the opportunities outside of football to throw yourself off and sidetrack you. So I truly believe the Giants have to treat every rookie different from other NFL teams. If you let's look at the Green Bay Packers. You have nothing to take your focus away from football in Green Bay. I still think they have a blockbuster in Green Bay right now. Like, that's how far behind they are than a place like a New York City. No offense, Green Bay, we love you, but I'm just saying it's probably better for a rookie in Green Bay, situationally, than it is in New York. And to go in and play, I struggled early on in my rookie year. I struggled going into my second year and really had to find myself and be like, hey, do I want to be a player in this league? And am I going to, pull myself out from the bottom of this pit that I was in? And I did it. And I played 11 years since, but there was a tipping point in my career early where I almost didn't make it out. And I think having the ability to redshirt a guy, bring him in, roll him in as a 6 offensive lineman, basically what they're doing with Evan right now, is the best way to go about progressing a guy into the NFL.
Hey, Giant fans, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. And now you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And you can get in on all the action during weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, when PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Get your payouts as soon as within 15 minutes after requesting them. So go on and download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Hey, Giant fans, the new Locked On NFL is here. Locked On NFL is now 2 shows every day. First, the madman Tyler Rowland kicks off your morning with a double shot of NFL espresso. Then stop by the barbershop for a visit with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the new Locked On NFL your second listen on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Justin, let's talk about Daniel Jones, because I don't ever recall any player, and you can even throw Eli Manning into this mix at the end of his career, but I don't recall any player really dividing the fan base in terms of opinions. When you look at Daniel Jones, this is year 6 for him. Where has he progressed, and where does he still need to get better in his game?
Yeah, I mean, he is the leader of this football team. And I think that's the one thing that he must have taken from Eli. I wasn't in the building during that transition, but he's the first one in. He's the last one out. He does and says all the right things. He outworks everybody. And that's something that you want to see out of your quarterback. There is no question he is a leader of that team, and he's a leader of that offense. I think Dexter on defense is probably the other captain, and Bobby Okereke. But Daniel Jones does everything right. He prepares, he puts his all into this. And that is something that gets lost if he goes out and doesn't play well. He is doing everything in his power to be successful on Sundays. And that is something that fans, I don't think they necessarily appreciate, because if you produce, they don't care what you do outside of football. As long as you're producing, they're happy, and especially at that position. The one thing that Daniel has to get better at is those catastrophic errors, those turnovers that lead to 6 points the other way or 3 points on the board. We have a tremendous defense, put them in the best position to be successful. And I think we're starting to get our identity. Tim McDonald said it best during the Hard Knocks. If we let Saquon Barkley walk out of the door, what is our identity going to be? Well, you know what it is? We're going to drop back and we're going to throw it to Malik Nabers 50% of the time. We're going to hand it off to Devin Singletary in this revamped offensive line, and he's going to get rushing yards. So really the Giants are going back to that philosophy. If you look at the teams we've played, the Vikings right now are probably 1 or 2 in power rankings in the NFL. So not a team that I thought it was a worse loss than it is now. The Commanders are way better. They actually look like the favorites in the NFC East right now. And then there's the Dallas Cowboys. And we're 2 catches away from beating the Cowboys and the Commanders. And I know everyone wants to give me all sorts of other hoopla around it. Daniel Jones has played winning football. People talk about Daniel Jones like he can't compete in the NFL. I put this stat up, and then someone else did it last week. Like, put Trevor Lawrence and put Daniel Jones next to each other. Daniel Jones has better stats than Trevor Lawrence if you include the running stats. Everyone goes crazy. He's like, oh, it's such a bargain. We just signed Trevor Lawrence. It's turning around in Jacksonville right now, and they're having all sorts of issues. Daniel Jones gets so much more hate because he's in a major media market that is New York City, and that comes with the territory. I continue to support Daniel. I think he's going to be successful this year, and I think he's going to do enough to be the quarterback next year. And the Giants can actually, in the draft, go best available instead of forcing their hand to a quarterback, which I know nobody wants to see.
All right, you mentioned Malik Nabers, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the effect that this guy has had on the offense. I mean, so far, I got it. In my opinion, Malik Nabers has lived up to the hype coming into the draft. When you look at this guy, how much higher, though, is his ceiling?
How much higher is the ceiling versus historic pace for a rookie receiver? I don't know how much higher you can get. Like, he has hit and exceeded every expectation. And you see the 2 helmets over my head with the Giants and the Cardinals. The Cardinals also have a very good rookie receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr. And those 2 guys are always going to get compared to one another as their careers progress. Who should have gone 4? Who should have gone 6? I think both teams are very happy with these young receivers. The one thing that I will say about Malik is you have to find the number 2 and number 3 threats and consistently feed them the ball, because teams are going to start bracket coveraging Malik, hitting him, trying to take him out of his game. I mean, he's taking some big shots. So I look for Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, really getting a tight end in there, having either Bellinger or Theo Johnson step up into that role to be that across the middle, kind of sitting in zones, making catches like a Travis Kelce, like it's easy to find that guy, but someone that can fill that void and take some of the pressure off Malik, because right now he's carrying the offense. And it reminds me of 2014. And there's this guy, Odell Beckham Jr. People hate the comparison. Why would you hate being compared? Odell had a historic rookie year. What's the negative of comparing the two?
Yeah, exactly. All right, Justin, I want to ask you about the defense because Shane Bowen came in complete 180, if you will, from what the Giants ran under Wink Martindale. Less blitzing, more zone coverage, more get home with the front, the defensive front. When you look at this defense, I know a lot was put on Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. People look at the stats and they say, these guys just aren't doing enough. But when you break down the film and you look at that film, are they really doing a little bit more than maybe what the numbers are indicating?
They definitely are. And I think the issue becomes some of the game plan. Like if the Giants are down in the game, it's very hard for the defensive line to get rolling and get going. I will say this, Dexter Lawrence is the best defensive lineman in football right now. He's getting doubled and triple teamed at a rate that I've never seen. He's knocking guys out of games. The Browns, just watch the Browns game and what they were able to accomplish. I would still like to see them getting home with 4 more often. The Browns, they had all those sacks and tackles for loss, but they were bringing a 5th blitzer. Jason Pinnock was coming time and time again. They were bringing it from the secondary. You want it. The game script also will dictate how those guys can get after it. And I still think the Giants defensive line could add another piece here or there to continue to improve because Dexter's going to get double teamed for the rest of his career. And it is on Kayvon and Brian Burns to make those plays. They are showing flashes, but like consistently dominating is what I'm looking for. And those guys have the ability. Kayvon's shown it when I was there. He can get to the quarterback at a high rate. And Brian Burns, I think they're all trying to figure out and get into their groove. But what I will say is on tape, these guys are making plays. They are doing things in the run game. So maybe it's not showing up on the stat sheet as much, but I'm telling you what I'm watching on film. Optically, I know this team will improve. We just have to continue. I know no one wants to hear wait, but continue to wait it out because these games are much more competitive than they have been in past years.
All right, Justin, before we get to your pod, I want to ask you one more question about the Giants. When you look at this team, the schedule that they have remaining, the slate of opponents, what's the number one thing that still is a question, the biggest question in your mind about this team?
That's a great question. I think it's continuing to identify who they are. Are they going to continue to feed Malik Nabers and Devin Singletary, which I believe is the right way to go about putting themselves in a good position? It's the depth. I think the depth is that next question of concern. You have 53 guys on that roster, and once the front line on the offensive defensive line aren't out there, can Evan Neal take that next step and become the player that he was drafted to be? Kayvon Thibodeau continuing to progress and live up to that draft type. I think we've hit on guys, like I mentioned before. I think Bobby Okereke is an absolute stud leader of this defense. Deonte Banks figuring out where he fits. Is he a true legitimate cornerback one? Can he go out there and shut down the CeeDee Lambs of the world and the Justin Jeffersons? So it's just continuing to identify who those guys are and who the cornerstones are to build off of going forward. And I have the utmost confidence in this team, in Joe Shane, Coach Brian Daboll. I think they are heading in the right direction. There's no doubt in my mind they deserve to be here next year. I've heard rumblings of that. If you can have continuity, it adds to success on the field. And that's where I just would plead with the Giants. Let's continue with some continuity. The fan base may not want to hear it today, but we're building to win in the future. And now it looks like we're building to beat a team like the Commanders. They seem to have this young core around Jaden Daniels. Look at Philly. Look at Dallas. I would love to see us knock those teams off this year and start kind of knocking them down a peg, and the Giants. And I'm even kind of cheering for the Commanders, if you can't tell. Like, I want to see the Giants and Commanders kind of flip this division on its head and get back to knocking those bullies out in Dallas and Philly.
Hey, Giant fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-plays, and so much more, all on the very same page where you place your bets. And right now, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Justin, let's talk about your podcast. Start off by telling the listeners out there what it's all about, what you try to do, your format, and all that.
Yeah, so I started a company called Athlete Podcast Network last year when I was actually with the Giants, where I just started talking about the games. I started talking about the business of sports, and I started my own podcast. So Athlete Podcast Network powers my podcast, just like your sponsors do with yours. And my podcast is called NetWorth with Justin Pugh. And I wanted to take the fans and the players and connect the two, because the game doesn't happen with either one, and it's the most important connection in all of sports. So what better way to get closer to the fans than I started traveling to every Thursday night game this season. So I started a new series where I go to every away Thursday game and I support the home team. I put the jersey on. I know people got mad. I put a Jets jersey on. Calm down. No one's paying my bills right now, so I can put a Jets jersey on. I won't be putting division rivals. I'll guarantee you that one. I won't be putting an Eagles jersey on anytime soon. But go to the city, try the food, meet the fans. I've been pleasantly surprised at how awesome some of these fan bases are, because I'm used to them booing me and flipping the bird and all those different things. So it's nice to sit in the stands with the fans and really get a sense of what these atmospheres are like. And as of right now, I had the Chiefs #1. I had the Jets #2. I have my near and dear Giants #3 and Miami #4. And the one thing I have to say about my Giants fans, and I'm a part of it, is we need a chant. We need something like a rallying cry. I know we started the defense chant. We need something that we can yell across the street to the Giants fan, or you see someone in the airport and you can say it to them, and it annoys other fan bases. Kansas City has the chop. That was such a great thing to be a part of. The Jets have their chant. Miami didn't really have a chant either, and you could feel these lulls in the stadium. So I think both go hand in hand. If we can have a chant and we start winning football games, everything will get better. But like I said, I had to be fair. I'm like family, so a little corrective criticism from family never hurt. And that was part of my rankings this last video.
Now, Justin, you have played the game for I would say probably most, if not all, of your adult life. So this is really your first chance to be a spectator as opposed to being part of the game. How has your perspective or the way you view the game changed now that you are a spectator?
The best part about it is I get to meet super fans from every single team. You go to Kansas City, they have this crew that puts a tailgate together, and I get to hear their stories and how much they put into, the fandom. I went to Miami, and there's this guy, Big E, who hasn't missed a game in 14 years. They raise money for charities and cancer research. I went to the Jets and I got to meet Gary Vee, and I don't care how big of a superstar he is. He comes down to the same level as any other fan on planet Earth because they just want to see the Jets win. I got to walk around with license plate guy in the parking lot with the Giants, and he's a celebrity with the blonde hair and the license plates on. And to show how much these people put into it, not only monetarily, but their heart and soul, it's been really rewarding for me to walk side by side and shine a light on those fans, because they're what makes the game so great, and they deserve all the shine they can get.
What do you have coming up on your podcast? What can you tease to?
So we're going to continue to drop episodes every Monday. So go on to any of my social medias, go on to YouTube, type in NetWorth Justin Pugh, subscribe, get ready for the drops every Monday. We will be in Atlanta this Thursday night. So I fly out tomorrow to get down there for the Thursday night game. They're playing the Buccaneers. It is going to be an electric environment. Matt Ryan's getting inducted into the Ring of Honor down there with the Falcons. The stadium looks incredible. I've heard nothing but great things about Mercedes-Benz, or is it Mercedes-Benz, the Dome down there. Go try some food down there in Atlanta, and I'll give you the experience. So if you're a prospective fan out there looking for games to go travel to and cities to experience, I'm going to be your go-to guy. I'll let you know what it's like down in Atlanta. So tune into that, and I will see you on next Monday with that episode.
And before I let you go, Justin, you mentioned before we started recording that, it sounds like you haven't quite given up on returning to the game, that if an opportunity came along that was deemed right, you would do it. If that opportunity did come along, would you be able to still balance your podcast, or how would you approach that?
We would probably have to put the series on hold so I could go play on Thursday Night Football instead of just watch. But I've told every team that I went to, I'm like, hey, I'll be in row 12, seat 21 if you need a left guard. I'm always here if you need me. So some teams have reached out. It hasn't been the right fit. I have a family. I just had a daughter, married. I got 2 dogs. And I don't want to just go live in a motel while the season's going on. I did that last year, and that's part of the hiccup right now, I guess, with me playing, is I want to bring my family with me and give me a little bit of a notice. So if a team's going on a playoff run and they might need some O-line depth, give me a little bit of a notice. I'll start crushing more of these smoothies. And, I'll start hitting the weights a little bit harder, and I'll be ready to roll for the playoff run.
So do you bring your helmet with you to these games?
I don't bring a helmet, but I think I might have to start doing it. This one still fits. I mean, if my Giants helmet, I still have my mouthpiece in it right now. So I'm ready to roll if called.
So if the Giants would be a no-brainer for you, obviously.
I love the Giants, and anyone that knows me knows that I would drop anything to go play for the Giants. They're always going to be my number one choice to go play for. They have a solidified offensive line. I don't know, if I could really help them out right now, maybe I would be the guy bringing in the sandwiches and bringing in the team dinners. I know I wanted to roll that out last year, and that was one thing I failed in my video. I was supposed to bring Dayball this O-Bagel sandwich from a place that we would get every Fridays. I didn't get it to him Thursday before the game, so maybe I'm a little bit to blame for the Thursday night game. I mean, if I would have got him that sandwich, I think I could have swung the game.
Oh, Justin, come on. You're Mr. Reliable and you let him down on a sandwich?
I couldn't get to the field early enough. I was out in the parking lot with the fans. I didn't time it out right.
Oh, man. Well, hey, listen, you're human, and listen, your history with the Giants, I can certainly understand why they're always going to probably be up there or number one in your heart, given that that's where you got started. That's where you've made your name. I remember the Pugh crew. I don't know if you still have that, but just to watch you, and I say this to all former players, just to having had the opportunity to watch you go from being this little doe-eyed kid to a husband, a father, a businessman. I think it's part of the, it's one of the most rewarding things for me to just witness that, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right?
That's 100%. And that's what you find out when you stop and take a second to talk to somebody or talk to a fan. And Patty, you've been there throughout my entire career, and you saw me go from a young boy to a man and grow up and leave the Giants and get to come back last year. So I appreciate everything you do, because you are a conduit to the fans as well. I mean, we have some of the best, reporters, beat writers with the Giants. So not everyone is as fortunate to have the supporting cast like I did with you guys and some of the other greats. I'm not going to say names because everyone will get mad at me if I give other shout outs, but I do appreciate you too, Patty.
I appreciate you, Justin, and I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your schedule to come on with me. I was looking forward to this, all day. It is the highlight of my day. I just got out of a bunch of meetings, which were, business is business, but always great catching up with you. I wish you continued success on your podcast. I hope if you get the call to come back to the Giants, we get to see you in the locker room. If not, you'll always be a Giant. Once a Giant, always a Giant.
Once a Giant, always a Giant. You'll see me around regardless. I'm always going to be around. So thanks for having me on, and let's go get some more Giant wins now.
Amen. All right, Giant fans, that's Justin Pugh. Be sure to check out his podcast. I'll have the information for you in the show notes. Thank you, Giant fans, for spending time with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Keep it here tomorrow. We're going to have Crossover Thursday with Corbin Smith of Locked On Seahawks. And of course, we'll wrap up the week with a look at what the Giants need to do to get that elusive win that they missed out on last week. How can they beat the Seahawks? For Justin Pugh, I'm Patricia Trainer. Thank you for watching the Locked On Giants podcasts.